Hello. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to demonstrate the Daedalus user interface for the Cloudera data platform. You can see here, this is the main screen. We currently have three environments that are running. We have one that is running on AWS, we have one that's running on Google Cloud, and we have one that's running on Azure. If you look here, this little button that says config, that means that the configuration was captured when we did the deployment to AWS. So this particular one, it understands the entire layout for the deployment. You can see that that's not here on these other two. These were deployed manually on the CDP user interface, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later. If I click on the card, it shows me which services are running. In this particular case, we have an AWS environment, and it gives me the information about that. We're running on the CDP platform. It gives me some basic information about that. And we do have a data engineering cluster. In this particular case, we've got a number of nodes running the data engineering configuration. You'll notice that on this, because we have the configuration, there's a number of features that we can take advantage of. And really with the user interface that Daedalus provides, it provides a center, control center for across the entire capabilities of the platform. So we really don't distinguish, over here we have a data service, over here we have data clusters and so forth. This is a fully integrated user interface to the power of the Cloudera platform. If I click the audit button, that's going to bring up all of the different activities that have happened on the platform over the range here, and I can filter this down. It's really just giving me the capability to see and understand all of the different accesses to the platform. Consumption is one that this is showing me how the resources are consumed on the platform. And this takes about 45 seconds to load the first time that we access it. Once we've accessed it, then it keeps a cache of this information so that it can load much quicker. So if we want to go back and look at the information in more detail later, but the first time that we load it, it does take about 45 seconds to load. And so this is showing me the credits that I've used, the usage across which components, and then all of the details. So like this particular Spark instance used 28 cents because it was running for 1 hour. And there's all the pages of all the consumption that I have. But like I said, if I go back in, it loads immediately because the information is cached and I don't have to bring it back down from the CDP platform again. During this period, over the last 3 months, I've used $200 in credits, and I've been running the platform for around 250 hours. Now, one of the capabilities that is quite nice is that if there happens to be upgrades for the platform, I can do that all here in a single UI. So I can, in this particular case, the current version is 7.3.1. All the other versions are downgrades, and so there's really no reason to downgrade the platform. But if I did have an upgrade available, I could do a full upgrade, just do the services or just do the platform, and it all happens right here from the console. The other is that to conserve resources, some organizations like to suspend the platform in the evenings or over a holiday weekend. And here we can do that all in one place. So when I click on the suspend button, it actually understands what is active. And so we can see here that I do have a Data Hub cluster that I can suspend. The machine learning is not installed on this environment as of yet. Data engineering, OpDB, and Dataflow do not have the ability to suspend, so those are not supported at the moment. And then finally, with Data Warehouse, I can suspend either the virtual warehouses or the entire warehouse itself. I pick those and I can execute that all from one console. If I have suspended things, then I have a console to start the resources, or at least pick and choose which things I'd like to start. And finally, if I want to delete capabilities from the platform, and this is a nice feature if I can delete the entire platform, or I can just delete specific installed resources. And so it's something that we've seen a lot of organizations, especially if you're, fire up a data warehouse data service and run it for a while, and then you want to tear it all down and then build it again later. Really take advantage of that elastic capability that's available in CDP. It makes it easy to do all in one place. Plus, we can spin up entire deployments and then tear them all down very easily. Just we could do a complete delete and it removes everything from the CDP environment, and it also removes everything from the cloud that we happen to be running on. So we don't have to do it all in bits and pieces. I'm going to show a couple of different ways to do a deployment. And a deployment from a Daedalus perspective is our view of the entire Cloudera platform. So this involves all the data hub clusters, all the data services, the underlying cloud infrastructure, the CDP environment, the CDP data lake, all of those things all wrapped together as a deployment. So I'm going to start a traditional deployment. And you can see here that I could go in and make some decisions and start it. We call this our quick start page. I'm going to make it even quicker for this, and I'm going to read in an example build. And it will preload some of this stuff so I don't have to type it all in. Now, this particular case, this uses all of the services, and it's set up to use all the main clusters. So data engineering, stream analytic, and solar, the data discovery. You can see here that it's estimating the costs, the monthly costs for having this platform, and it ranges from just over 21,000 to just over 100,000. What that means is that the base, with everything at its base level and scaled down, if it's an auto scaling platform, would be about the 20,000. And if everything scaled up, so like if all the AI capabilities scaled up, if all the data engineering, if all the data warehouse, if all of that scaled up to max and it ran for the entire month, it would be 100,000. So not likely, but it gives the customer a range that they can look at. Many organizations get discounted pricing, so we have that here where they can put in a discounted rate for the CDP credits or a discounted rate for cloud, and it will help them understand what the cost would be for the platform. In this particular case, I'm going to turn off the data clusters, and I'm going to turn off the op database and data flow, and reconfirm, and that drops us down to 6 to 66. So you can see that we have about a 10x growth factor in the configurations if things scale up. So if I'm happy with that, I have my prefix, which is Ramsey International RI, and I have a postfix called test because we're building a test, and we're going to build this on Amazon. So I click next. It takes me to the CDP page. You can see it shows me what the environment name is going to be based on that prefix and postfix. I can override the access keys, although because I'd already configured and it was stored on my machine as part of the CLI access, it read those in and just immediately is using those. I can make adjustments to the configuration. We tend to use a format for all of the policies and the names and everything else. But if an organization wants to override that, like for example, if they want to override the policy and not have it be, RI master policy test, in this particular case, they can do that and override everything. But most organizations are happy just setting up to have a very standard and structured way to do this. I'm going to go to next, which is the cloud infrastructure, which in this case is AWS. I can pick different environments. So I'm going to pick US East, and then it allows it automatically has sorted out all the VPC options. Many organizations, larger organizations, their network group will provide the VPC, so then I can just uncheck this and provide the name of the VPC, and it will use that in the distribution. But here we're going to be building it. Same way with storage buckets and whether I want light duty or medium duty HA or how many free IPA instances, and if I want to encrypt the data lake and encrypt the cloud storage and all of these kinds of things. I can enable RAS, I can turn on and off some different flags. All of this as part of sort of the credentialing of the underlying cloud provider. The next page is for security, and this is where we can link this into an identity provider, or whether the organization is using LDAP to control all the access control. RI has actually created a product called Distillery that is a linkage between an LDAP server and CDP, and it controls a lot of the access rights. And you can basically fully control CDP by putting entries into LDAP all in one place, and it distills it all down to allow us to have multi-level grouping and other things. But at this point, we're just going to leave all this basic. I then go into my services. In this particular case, the data engineering service, I have one service and I have one virtual cluster. If I change and I want to add another virtual cluster, I can just come down here, add the virtual cluster, make changes to any of the configurations, say OK. And so now I have two virtual clusters. I can I have this with doing a Hive and an Impala. I can get rid of one of those. I can change how data warehousing works that sits on top of this environment. Same for CML, so I can change and create multiple workspaces or change the configuration I'm using. Here's M5 4x large and G5 X large for CPU and GPU. If I want to change those, I can just edit, and let's say I wanted to change these to something different. We can do all of that. If I go into the operational database, I decided at the quick start to not enable this. I could change my mind here and enable it. Same with data flow, but I'm just going to leave those the way they are. And then I go to the summary page, which kind of gives me an overview that I'm enabling 3 services, no clusters, and the kinds of things that I'm running. I don't have any errors in the configuration. I can look at the validation. Everything looks good. I can look at the cost again. This shows me my scaled down monthly cost, how it spreads across things, what the total annual cost will be. Again, clients like to be able to see costs from a variety of perspective. We do have a pre-check, which I'll run. And this makes sure that if we actually deploy, that it will deploy successfully. It checks things like the naming, the rules of naming, the configuration of the environment, all of those kinds of things so that we don't fail later down. Now, Cloudera itself has added some checking, but when this was originally developed a few years ago, we just wanted to make sure that we didn't spend all this time doing a deployment and then fail because one of the policy names was too long or something like that. So once I've settled on all of this, then I'm ready to run the deployment. So if I click Run Deployment, it tells me that this deployment is going to take about 2 hours and 20 minutes because we're going to start with the network and all the policies on AWS, and then we're going to build the environment and then the data lake and then all the services we build in parallel. So in total, it'll take about 2 hours and 20 minutes. So at this point, I click Start Deployment, and it starts deploying the process. You'll notice here that it brings up a card just like these. These are available. This card is showing that it's deploying. And it's a deploy card, so it shows over here. I can click the details, and this shows me, the log messages of what are happening. If I see any errors in here, it also shows me the the phases that are happening. So it's doing a validation, then it'll start the platform. Shows me details. This is the deployment ID and it's in process. So all of these things are nice, but a lot of times I don't want to just sit looking at a deployment. So it'll be running in the background. Now keep in mind, the big difference here is this is doing the entire deployment all in one place, all at one time. So it makes it very easy for the administrators to be able to monitor all of these things that are going on all from one place. And you can see here that we have a total of 3 environments because we've yet to actually activate the environment for our 4th, and we have 3 of them running. Now here you can see an interesting situation where after a bit of time, about 20% of the work, the deployment failed on the new RI environment test. And so let me just click on the details and we can see here that it went through, it created all of the things, and then it got to the point where it was waiting for the CDP environment to be available. And unfortunately, the internet connection crashed. So this is not something you want to see, but it does happen. We can look here that it's sitting here saying, okay, well, I created the AWS environment, but the underlying environment is not there, and you can see that it failed. And so what I can do is it's sent the command to actually create the environment. I'm going to delete this attempt, and what you'll see is that we have 4 environments, 3 of them are running, and this is our test environment here, and it's right in the middle of creating free IPA creation. Now, the interesting thing is what's happened is it's created that entire AWS platform. It started the creation of the CDP environment, which takes about 15 minutes or so, but then we lost the connection. This could be catastrophic if you're trying to do this manually because you'd have to go in and clean all of this stuff up and start over. In our particular case with Daedalus, I can just click on the card and it shows me that we've got the environment, and it has this little button here, edit, and I click on edit and it puts me back in the deployment manager. So everything is the same. I haven't really changed anything, although I could at this point change things because I know the platform is being built, and the free IPA is loading. And so what I'm going to do is go all the way to the end here, and I'm going to ask it to run the deployment again. Now you'll notice here where it still says the same amount because it hasn't actually gone to restart yet. So it doesn't know that we've already have those other things out there. So I'm going to click start the deployment. It'll create the deployment card. It will get everything started. It'll take me back to the home page. Now this takes a little bit of time because it's got to check and see what things are going on. But you can see here where we're now back to deploying. And it will, if I go into the details, it will recognize that these things already exist. I want to demonstrate a new kind of beta way to do a deployment that we've created, and that's with an AI assistant. And this is linking the Daedalus product together with the Gen AI Pro product, which is a way to rapidly create generative AI solutions. And so here we're going to use AI to help us and do a configuration based on the characteristics that we're going to provide for the solution. So what I'm going to say here is I want a production level platform that will support 5,000 daily Spark jobs with 30% long running. It also needs to support an Impala data warehouse with 500 users with 150 concurrent daily users with 500 terabytes of data. It also needs to support our 50 data scientists using GPU and CPU models on, let's say, 50 terabytes of data. And so I'm going to submit this, and when I do, it's going to get packaged up and sent to a large language model. In this case, we're using GPT-5. So it's going to take a lot of the characteristics and the configuration and best practices of deploying these kinds of platforms on CDP, and it's going to come back with a recommendation. And here it says it updated the configuration to do all the things. It enabled encryption, blah, blah, blah. And it delivered all of that. And I'm going to review the configuration. Our configuration checker validates it, and it shows like everything that's picked. I'm going to accept it and load it into a quick start. And so basically at this point, you can see what it's done is it's picked data engineering, data warehouse, and an AI workbench because of the fact that we said we had Spark jobs and an Impala data warehouse and for the data scientist. Just like everything else, it shows us our range. I click next. All of the configuration things are here. It's configured the VPC for the environment. I can just scroll through this, get to the last page, and it's showing that it's going to deploy on 3 different services. So this is just a new way that we have come up with to integrate really the advancements of artificial intelligence together with the power of Daedalus for deployment. So I think it's really going to be interesting where it takes us. Um, uh, I think we've shown the different capabilities here. One of the things is we did do the deployment for the environment, and that was the one that failed, and then we restarted. In this particular case, I'm going to click on delete to have it pull up what it has here, and we're going to go ahead and do a permanent delete. And so I'm going to do RI environment test. And I'm going to delete this environment. And so now this works a lot like the deployment, just in reverse. So it's going to go through and tear down everything for that particular environment and completely flush it out. I could select where I only tear down certain pieces of it, like if I wanted to leave the network and the cloud components and then go back and build something later, I could. But in this particular case, I'm just deleting everything. Again, if I click on delete, it shows me what it's doing. If I go to the phases, it's showing me that it's doing the services cleanups now, and then it'll go through and clean up everything else, and it shows me the start and that it's in progress. So anyway, that's just an example of the power of Daedalus, of doing recovery rebuilds, of doing deletes, of doing an AI-driven deployment. So a lot of different capabilities here that all come together to show the power of AI together with the power of the CDP platform and the deployment power of Daedalus. I hope you enjoyed.